Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I will call the South of London Model Rail Radio Get-Together. When I get together with Model Rail Radio participants in particular, I always feel a curious kind of kinship. I mean, technically, I'm not a model railroader of any note, and also technically, I've come to the model railroading hobby as more like a guest interviewer than an active participant. But the folks who listen to Model Rail Radio always put together some of the best get-togethers. It always has a lot of kinship, and you get to meet really interesting and really quite eclectic people through the Model Rail Radio fan base. For this trip, I had to go to a particular station called Sidcup. From Sidcup, I had a cup of coffee with the listener, Simon Hill, who was just absolutely amazing. The hosts for these Model Rail Radio get-togethers are always untouchable in terms of how they construct the get-togethers and also how they put some of their eclectic interests in this. A listener, Paul Best, also came to the event, and he was half an hour later. He was on the same train, but basically half an hour later. So, having had the cup of coffee with Simon, we went up to meet Paul, and Paul and I hung out for the remainder of the day. He came to the Stone 8 dinner as well, so good liaison between the two events. Simon has a variety of friends who get together on a regular basis, associated with a fellow called Ken's Property. The property is on a hill, and it has a long kind of drop down the hill where they have built what's called narrow gauge, because the rails and wheels are closer together on the trains, a narrow gauge full-size layout, which involves taking wood up the hill, taking a variety of dump cars, for want of a better term, of horse manure down the hill, and in general a fun time is had by all. There's a little stretch to take passengers initially to get a sense of the place, but it's all very neatly put together, and really it was a very charming, I don't know how long it was, maybe 2 or 3 hours spent in this environment. There were a group of folks from, I think, the National Narrow Gauge Society there, so there were a bunch of other men who were taking photographs and, generally making a mischief of themselves, while the folks who operated the particular, let's call it a layout or railroad, I don't know what you'd call it, they, gave various notes and showed off various things. They had built a 6-ton steam locomotive, which they had subsequently sold, and I kind of, in hearing about this thing, thought that the steam locomotive might actually still be there. It wasn't there. It didn't need to be there, actually. The 2 tiny diesel locomotives, one a 2-stroke, one a 3-stroke, were just absolutely charming. Various things fell off the rails through the event and were kind of shoved back on with large sticks. It was all very human size while still being a full-scale layout, and it was just a really nice day. We ended up stopping off at a train shop at the way back to the train station because I had categorically not been able to find any model rail shops in the UK. There's a general problem in the UK where it's under constant building, and wherever Google says a store once was, highly unlikely that it's actually going to be there if it's associated with Manchester, Leeds, or London, because these are the areas where building is being done. After the whole thing, I took a train back to London with Paul Best and chatted about the day and various other eclectic things. Paul works in the rail industry. I think he's associated with some degree of safety aspect or things like that. It was just an amazing day. I mean, whenever Model Rail Radio listeners produce this kind of day, I'm going to shout out Short Funk listener Jim Gifford as well, because he really created the premier element of this whole, Model Rail Radio Day. Just gives a wonderful opportunity for me to hang out with a group of folks who really are very appreciative of what I do in Model Rail Radio, but lend their own character to the recordings as well, which is the important thing. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.